Next, call on Representative Chandra Dillard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and appreciate your leadership on this very important issue and over our ad hoc committee. I will say that when the speaker gave this committee its charge, he asked us to look at what would a South Carolina look like after a Roe versus Wade decision. And we heard miles of testimony at our first meeting, 7 hours of testimony at our first meeting. And so primarily, the outcome today is draft legislation around who has rights over their body and who does not, how we're going to, what doctors can do. And so that's one step of this process. The folks that I have heard from predominantly do not support this legislation or any encumbrances upon a woman's right, but this is one part of what we have heard and how members of this body feel. So I recognize the legislative. Can you guys hear me? Better? Well, let's do this. Well, I won't be starting over, so I hope somebody somebody's got that. I think that's a little better. I was hoping, I'm going to allow the bill to continue its process, and we will continue to speak on its merits. But I was hoping that this process would be more inclusive of what the repercussions to South Carolina would be and her families, and the children who will be born from the bill that whatever it is enacted, because right now we do have a bill in place, the fetal heartbeat bill. And so what am I talking about? It's if South Carolina is going to bear children, and are we prepared for those children? I just heard from my colleagues about adoption laws being strengthened, but there are other things that we need to consider. And so I was hoping that we would have our agencies, our state agencies, front and center to discuss some of these things, because we cannot wait to get a handle on how we're going to care for families in South Carolina. So what am I talking about? We know that a new baby has a tremendous financial impact on a family, and our actions here today will have a huge impact on all of the services we provide as a state. And we haven't considered all of them because we haven't talked about them. I did bring this up to our chairman, and he agreed that we needed to tackle some of these things, encouraged me that maybe we should wait until January. Well, this is the forum, this is the opportunity, and I believe we're doing due diligence so that our colleagues will also be prepared for the next phase of bills or legislation that we need to impart. And so some of the questions that I have center around Medicaid. Right now in South Carolina, Medicaid pays for 60% of all pregnancies and deliveries in this state, and at a cost of more than $500 million per year. How are we going to fund Medicaid when we have not expanded Medicaid? So just a question there. Already $500 million. Now we're covering postpartum health care for 12 months, which I support, but have we considered how much more this will cost in those Medicaid dollars? What about SNAP and TANF benefits? How much more will this cost our state? If 60% of women who had abortions in the past already have one child, then that means their families are likely to expand and become larger, which we have not calculated those costs. Consider the majority of South Carolina residents who live in poverty. I'm very sensitive to that. I represent many of these people. What is going to happen to their livelihoods? How will the single mom afford to pay or put 2 children in daycare when that is already a crisis? COVID shut down our daycare facilities, and they have not revived. I've heard that nonprofit organizations and churches may provide some help with diapers and maternity clothes, and that's all well and good, but it's not sustainable over time because children require services for a lifetime. South Carolina's foster care system is inadequate to serve the needs of the children we now have. We have 4,500 children in foster care. 32% of these children are over the age of 13, which means their likelihood of finding a home becomes greater. New statistics show that an additional 5,200 children between the ages of 0 to 5 years old will be entering the foster care system in this state due to economic conditions and other family situations. So what are these costs? What are we going to make available to them? I was hoping that we could have Michael Leach in here to talk about how we're going to handle this. What is our current conditions? What is our current conditions of our foster care infrastructure? I was hoping that we would have and invite the hospitals in to see how they're going to manage with a physician shortage. Because believe me, whereas we have attempted to clarify the language in this bill, there is still ambiguity for physicians. And so they may leave this state or never come to this state. So I'd like to hear from the hospital system. I'd like to hear from all of those who want to formulate a plan so that we are not in a further crisis in this state when it comes to child welfare. Roe versus Wade has been the law of this land for 50 years. I don't believe that we can answer South Carolina's issue on how it's going to impact us in with two meetings. It's going to take more time. And I think we need to do that before it does become a crisis in this state. And so another thing that we can look forward to our economy is that women make up 50% of our workforce. Without access to abortion, women's participation in the labor force could plummet. And some women will have to reduce their working hours, and some will have to drop out of the labor force altogether. It could be that women no longer pursue higher education. Those that do, they're going to leave this state for a more progressive state. So therefore, our talent will be walking out of the door. So I don't think our work is complete, Mr. Chairman and committee. I think that there's more work to do. And if we leave that to January, woe to us on that. I just think that we need to look at this holistically and really take seriously the charge that the Speaker gave this committee to examine what a Roe versus Wade post-decision state would look like. Thank you.